Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Today we are starting our next unit. So we have a new unit and it is finance. So today's lesson is all about simple interest. Okay, so again, a little lesson and then some practice questions for you to try. Okay, let's get started. So when we're talking about interest, here's an example that I want to go through first. So when Rachel was born, her grandparents deposited $1,000 into her account. Okay, so she has $1,000 in her account, and it earns 6% interest each year for 5 years. But every year on her birthday, she gets a check for the amount of interest that has been earned. Okay, so if she has $1,000 in her account, and we're earning 6% interest on that, that's $60. Okay, so you just do 6% of 1,000. So that means that in total after 1 year, she has earned $60. Okay, so then she gets a check for that amount, and then in her account still is that $1,000. Okay, after another year, she earns another 6% interest on that $1,000, so that's another $60. Which means that in total now, she has earned $120. Okay, because she got that $60 from the first year and another $60 from her next year. Okay, so following this pattern, there's still only the 1,000 left in there at the beginning of each of the different years. So that means that our interest is always going to be 60, but we are going to add up 60 more each time for total. Okay, so this is 180. All right, so then we have, again, $1,000 in the account, which means that we earn $60 in interest. So plus that 180, we've now got $240 in interest. Okay, we have that in our pockets, though, not in the account. In the account is only $1,000, which means that it earns $60 in interest. So in total, Rachel will have $300 extra dollars, so $300 in interest after 5 years. Okay? That's what simple interest is. It's just interest gained on a certain amount, but it's always the same amount of interest. Okay? So we're going to see when we graph it here kind of what I mean by that. So at 0 years, she has earned $0 in interest. After 1 year, she earned $60. After 2 years, it was $120. After 3 years, it was $180. After 4 years, it was $240. And after 5 years, it was $300. Okay, so if I had done the best job here, which is, I didn't do too bad of a job, but we can see that this is linear. Okay, so the total interest that grows is linear. Okay, and that you get the exact same amount every year. Okay, so that's just a visual representation, and I want you guys to remember that simple interest is linear. Okay? So I'm going to show you a formula that we use. It's much easier than that table, I think. Okay, the formula is I is equal to PRT. Okay, I'll make that look like an I. Alright, so that's the formula for simple interest, where interest is only calculated on the original principal. So the I stands for interest earned. Okay, and that is in dollars, always. Right, we're talking about money now, so lots of dollar signs. P is the initial value. Okay, we also sometimes call that the principal. All right, and that again is in dollars. I believe when we were doing our word problems or applications for exponentials, P was also the initial value. Okay, so that hasn't changed. Same here. The R is your interest rate. Okay, and again, it is as a decimal. So whenever you see a percentage, you always change it to a decimal. Okay, and then lastly, T stands for the time. Okay, so how much time has passed that the money has been in the account. And this is always in years. Okay, so I'll show you how to manipulate some things later with that, but make sure your time is always in years. Okay, so our first example, we did this last unit, so we know how to change percentages to decimals. Okay, so we are going to divide by 100 or move the decimal place to the left twice. Okay, so 13% is 0.13. 2.5% is 0.025. And 0.5% is 0.005. I don't know why that one got an extra equal sign. Okay? So make sure your rate, your R, is always a decimal. Okay. Next, time. Okay? So we always need to express time in years. So if the time is given to you in something other than years, you've got to change it. So we need to remember that there are 12 months in a year, 52 weeks, and 365 days. Okay, we're going to use that information to always change the time to be in years. So 24 months, we're going to divide by the number of months in a year. Okay, so this is 2 years. All right, now 8 months, again, we divide by 12, and we get that this is 0.667 years. And it's okay if it's a weird decimal like that for years. It has to be that way. You can keep it as a fraction if it makes you feel better. Weeks, there are 52 weeks in a year, so we divide by 52, and we get 0.269 years. Okay, in 82 days, we divide by 365, and we get 0.224 years. Okay, so that's something you've got to remember. Always, excuse me, always make sure your time is in years. Okay. Next, this formula only gives you the amount of interest that is earned, but if you want to figure out the amount of an investment, so how much it's all worth together, okay, the amount is going to be the principal plus your interest. Okay, that makes sense. The total amount that you have is the original amount you put in plus whatever interest was earned. Okay, so A is the final amount. Always in dollars. Okay, P is your initial slash your principal. Okay, again in dollars. And I is the interest earned. We're talking money. Okay, so let's do an example together, and then I'm going to have you guys try some. All right. So here's our example. We need to calculate how much interest, so we're trying to find the interest that is earned if $2,000 is invested at 4% simple interest for 26 weeks. Okay, so here is $2,000 is my initial value, right? Here is my interest rate, and this is the time. Okay, so I always like to start these questions by writing IPRT and writing down what we're given. So interest is what we're trying to find, so we don't know that, but the principal we do know. It is $2,000. Okay, our interest rate as a decimal is 0.04. And our time is 26 weeks, but remember we have to change that to years, so we're going to divide it by 52 because there are 52 weeks in a year. So this is 0.5 years. Okay, so now we can use our equation. I is equal to PRT and fill in what we got. So 2,000 times 0.04 times 0.5. Okay, throw that into a calculator and we get 40. Okay, to make it look perfect. So therefore, they earned $40 in interest. Okay, but that's not how much the investment is worth now. So remember the formula I showed you at the top of this page, that the total amount of the investment is your principal plus your interest. Okay, so we're going to use that. So the amount that we have is the original principal, so $2,000, plus the interest we just earned here, which was 40. Okay, so the total amount that we have is 2,040. Okay, always good practice to write a therefore sentence. So therefore, the investment is worth $2,040. Okay, so now for today I want you guys to complete these 5 questions. Okay, so the first 2, changing percentages to decimals, changing time to years. Now this chart, I've given you a little space beside each of the rates and the time because you've got to change them into decimals and years, okay? So this first one would be 0.045, okay? And then 3 months we divide by 12, so we get 0.25, okay? That's what those spaces are for. And then you would multiply to get the interest. You multiply principal times interest rate times time. Okay, so those 3 numbers multiplied together will get you the interest. Okay, so in this case I think it's $22.50. And then your total amount, you are going to add the interest plus the principal. Okay, so $22.50. Alright, and then there's a few questions at the bottom as well. Alright, I will put up the answers to these questions, but in the meantime, good luck.